Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Mike in the Midwest. It is Thursday. It is cold. It is snowy in St. Peters, Missouri, and we are live on YouTube. And we are getting ready to record this week's show, episode number 87. We're going to talk about my top 5 Disney podcasts that are no longer with us. And I wish were. Does that make sense? I wish they were. So anyway, we're going to talk about the top 5 Disney podcasts I wish we could still listen to, and some of them maybe possibly could come back. I don't know, but we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the snow day that we're having right now, and all kinds of good stuff. So Mike in the Midwest, episode 87, coming your way right now. So get ready for that. I'll be hitting your feed here once I edit the show. So let's get ready so I can pop up the feedback from last week's podcast. And we'll get a cracking. Oh, gosh, I got to log in. Got to log into my own page. Here we go. Log in. And here we go. All right. Here we go. Episode number 87, Mike in the Midwest. So let's get rocking. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 87 of Mike in the Midwest, a mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, this is Mike Rahman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast, and we are recording this podcast here on Thursday, February 24th, 2022. How you doing? I hope you are doing outstanding. As we're recording today's show, we are having yet another snow day for Mallory and my wife here in St. Peters, Missouri. Today, we are not buried in snow. It's kind of a strange one here in the Midwest in Missouri. This time, it's more ice. We have a little bit of ice on the ground, and so Mallory's school district is completely off, so she is still sleeping as we're recording this podcast here at about 9:30 in the morning Central Time. But my wife is sitting at our kitchen table upstairs teaching her students virtually. So they do not have a snow day. They have what's called an AMI day, which I believe stands for Alternative Method of Instruction, which means they will sit there and play on their computers today and do work virtually. And Pam will monitor them via the computer, via Zoom, and she will give some instruction. She will teach them some things via Zoom, and then they will do some work on the computer, and they will come back together and, evaluate how that instruction has gone and so forth. Teaching is so different nowadays. I think I would have done well at this, actually, though. I think that I got out of education a little bit before my time. I think I would have enjoyed teaching over Zoom. Maybe. I don't know. Possibly. I like technology. I love this stuff, right? Podcasting is just virtual. It's virtual teaching without the educational aspect of everything, right? I mean, that's what it is. So again, we are having a snow day here in Missouri. And if you were watching the weather, if you are anywhere in the Midwest, and I know I saw this happen yesterday for the folks up in New England, it was 65 here just a couple of days ago. Again, it was warm. It was spring for a couple of days. Like I was taking Riley out for a walk. It was wonderful. You could almost wear shorts. You did not even need to have a hoodie on. It was wonderful. Spring had sprung almost, except for baseball. And we're not even going to go there. I'm depressed. We need to get baseball figured out because I need some spring training. I need some Cardinal baseball back in my life. So let's hope that gets solved here soon before Monday, and they're going to cancel games and all that. But yeah, I'm hoping, and maybe you're with me. I don't know how you feel about wintertime, but wintertime is great for around Christmas. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. I always dream of a white Christmas. I always want that white Christmas. That's me. I love a white Christmas. We hardly ever get it in Missouri. We always get snow. If we're going to get it, it's usually in late January, this time of year, February, sometimes even in March. But I'm over it by now. I'm so over it. I'm ready for it to be 70 in springtime and trees get the leaves back on them. And let's get rid of the brown grass. Let's have the grass turn green again. Let's get to where we can, it doesn't have to be hot yet. Like I don't have to take the top down on the Jeep yet. I love taking the top down on the Jeep. I love taking the doors off the Jeep. Once the doors come off the Jeep, then they don't go back on until the fall. So I'm very conservative on that. Usually the doors don't come off on the Jeep until, maybe late May, maybe Memorial Day, stuff like that. But I'll take just, some 65-degree days, 70-degree days where it still gets cool at night. But yeah, I'm over the snow and the ice and where you got to go out to the mail and you got to walk the dog and you fall, because like you take 2 steps off the front porch and boom, you're on the ground. Like you, because right now where I live, and I'm sure where a lot of you live, if you're in Florida, you're just totally laughing at us for this last 4 minutes. But you play this game this time of year. You play the is it wet or is it ice game? And I lost at this game last week because I was walking Riley out for her mid-morning break to go use the restroom, and I swore that it was just water. And I was wrong. And I was on the ground really quick. And I was like, dang it, that was black ice. And yep, both knees, bam, right there on the ground. So yeah, I'm over winter. I'm ready for spring. I'm ready for baseball. I know the high school team starts baseball practice, I think, next week. So, I mean, that is a sign that we're getting there. We're getting closer. So I think maybe this is the winter's last gasp here with this ice storm. And we'll be out of this winter storm warning today. And spring will be right around the corner. I did hear it's supposed to be in the 60s again next week. So let's hope that it stays there and this is all behind us. But I hope you're doing well. So yeah, that's a great start to a mini podcast for you guys. I'm complaining about the weather for 5 minutes. Hey, hope you're doing well though. Hope you're doing great. So we had President's Day this past week, and hopefully had a day off on Monday. Of course, in my world, I love my job because I work from home. I get to plan Disney vacations, nothing to complain about there. But my days are all the same. Saturdays, a lot of times the same as Sundays and Mondays. So I didn't really have the day off, but I hope you did and got to spend some extra time. Tuesday, how about Tuesday? Did you do anything for Tuesday? It was 2 like with all the crazy twos and all the numerology and all that stuff. I don't get into that, but I mean, some people do. So hopefully you had a fun Tuesday with all the twos. And also it was National Margarita Day, I heard. So that was kind of crazy. And a huge shout out to all the lizards who are headed down probably today. Some headed down yesterday to Princess Half Marathon Weekend 2022. I wish I was going this year, but I'm kind of waiting, trying to save up. Mallory's squad is going back for the Summit Cheerleading Championships in April. So I'm foregoing the race weekends down at Walt Disney World here in the spring. So I'm not going for Princess or Spring Surprise. I'm kind of looking at it, but I don't think I'm going to go. Tower of Terror is still open, but I'm probably not going to go. But that's what you do as a runner. But yeah, so I wish the best weekend for everybody down there at Princess this weekend. I sure wish I was there with you. I did see that it's going to be hot. It looks like it's going to be about 90 this weekend, which with it being 22 degrees outside right now, I hate to say be careful, and I hate to say that I wish it wasn't going to be so hot because I'd take 90 right now. But I know when you're running as a runner, 90 is not ideal. So take care of yourself. Don't go too fast if it's hot and humid, especially if you're coming from a place where you haven't, experienced even temperatures in the 50s lately. So just enjoy it. You don't have to. I don't think that you have to qualify for the Olympic Games this weekend. You don't have to do that. Some people may try to get a Boston qualifying time. You probably don't have to do that at Princess Half Marathon Weekend. Really, what your job is this weekend is a couple things. Get medals. Okay, that's going to happen. Make some fun memories. That's for sure going to happen. Get some cool pictures along the way. Get some photos. Collect those. And just have a good time with friends and everybody that's there. So get down there, have a good time, and make sure you share those because I want to share and see all your photos on social media since I'm not there. But I'm really proud of you guys. I've seen a lot of people putting in work, and I'll tell you what, those people that are down for Princess, it's so hard to train over the winter time. When you're training for marathon weekend, Princess Half Marathon Weekend, it's tough because you're training during the terrible times outside. So you're doing a lot of treadmill miles, or if you're Laurie, I don't know if you guys know Laurie on the lizards. I mean, she gets out there when it's below zero and there's 8 feet of snow on the ground. I don't even want to go to the mailbox when it's like that outside. And she's like, I did 10 miles, the 6 inches of snow with a 40-mile-an-hour headwind. I love Laurie, and I say this in the nicest way possible. This is why I love our podcast community, because we're all family. And because of family, this is how we can love on each other. Laurie, you are crazy. People call me crazy a lot because I run a lot of miles every morning. I do not go out where I'm gonna lose a finger because of frostbite. I know you have lots of clothes on and stuff, but I mean, the pictures you post, if you've never seen Laurie in the Be Our Guest Lizards posts or on Facebook, I mean, literally, she'll be standing next to a snowbank and just done 9 miles, and it's the sun's just now coming up. It's amazing. So I shout out to Laurie. I do not have the guts she has when it comes to running. Anyway, so that's what's happening here. Snow day going to be 65 again next week. Was 65 2 days ago. But not a whole lot else going on. Just having some regrets that I'm not going to Princess. But you know what? You do what you do for your kids. We're gonna have a good time down there in April. We're staying at the Holiday Inn, Disney Springs, and as Lonnie, so our good friend Lonnie, who's does Disney with the Ducks podcast, and who also was in our live chat as we recorded this week. He aptly mentioned, because I'm staying at a Holiday Inn, I will be very much smarter by the time I get done with that stay. I think it's a Holiday Inn Express. So, the old meme, right? I stayed, I'm not a doctor, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So I'll come out very smart. But anyway, not very funny. But yeah, I'm planning on doing some fun stuff over at Disney Springs since we'll be in the area. I know that Pam told me I was dead asleep in bed. I go to bed before Pam sometimes because I'm old. And she woke me up last night as she came in and she starts talking about the cheerleading trip. And she's like, "Oh, I forgot to tell you," because Mallory had cheer last night. And she's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah. I forgot to tell you about the summit trip. And we're down in April. I had to sign us up. We're having a team dinner at Planet Hollywood. And we had to know if you're going to go. You had to be on the list by last night. And so I did put you down. So it's like, "Do you want to go?" I was like, "Yeah, that'd be fun. Planet Hollywood's good." I went there for the media event. It's like when they redid it, like 5, 6 years ago, it kind of looks like a planetarium now. They have really good food. They had a really good chicken like sandwich. I remember by Guy Fieri back in the day. So I was like, "Yeah, put me in." And so I was excited about that. So I know we're going to be having Planet Hollywood. I do want to check out City Works. I've never been there. That's kind of one of the things. And I was doing a podcast recording last night with a listener, Jennifer from Florida. And one of the places I really want to sit down and eat, maybe if we can sneak in, is Coral Reef at Epcot while we're down there. I don't know why, but I've been really, really wanting to go to Coral Reef. I think it's Space 220 that's got me kind of excited about Coral Reef. It's like the yin and the yang of it. They're kind of similar, but Coral Reef is Space 220 version 1, possibly. I don't know how you feel about that, but I kind of feel that way. It's like retro Space 220. It's like going back in time instead of going forward. Good food. So I want to maybe try that in April. We'll see. But I'll be spending some time over at Disney Springs. We're having fun with that. It's kind of fun to explore the places you don't typically go. So there you go. All right, let's hit feedback from last week's show. Last week I talked about, if you are a person of my age that went to school in the 80s here in St. Louis, there were certain field trips you did. I mean, everybody probably did these field trips. You went up in the arch, you did the museum under the arch, you went to the St. Louis Zoo, you probably went to Grant's Farm, you rode the riverboats downtown that were owned by the Arch Company, and you also always ate at the Riverboat McDonald's. That was a huge thing. And then the Burger King Riverboat came on later to try to steal the thunder. So here's the feedback we got from last week's show. So I'm going to go over the feedback. I love feedback. Please do always give your feedback, and do it again this week over at patreon.com/beourguestpodcast. That makes this fun for me, and hopefully it does for you too. Carrie Good, thank you for being a patron of the show. I really, really appreciate it. Says, the Riverboat McDonald's. Growing up outside of Chicago, we went to St. Louis for a week's vacation as kids. The thing I remember, the Arch, the Riverboat McDonald's, and the Fun/Magic House. All my brother and I could talk about when we got back from that trip was the Riverboat McDonald's. It was so cool. LOL. See, I'm telling you, it wasn't anything. You got the same food on the Riverboat McDonald's that you would get at your McDonald's in your town. But it was a huge like paddle wheel or riverboat, and it didn't go anywhere. It was docked, but it was just so cool. You were sitting on a riverboat that was floating in the Mississippi River, docked, and you could eat up on the decks and stuff. It was awesome as a kid. I loved it. I wish we still had it. But Carrie brings up an amazing thing that I totally forgot to bring up in St. Louis that every kid went to, and it is still here, and it is better than ever. It's called the Magic House. That's what it's called. Now, when I was a kid, it was super small. obviously, because I'm old. But it's in this town, kind of in South St. Louis County. It's about 30 minutes from us. It's in this nice neighborhood in St. Louis County. It's called Kirkwood. And it's a place called the Magic House, and they call it a children's museum. And what it is, it's just a little, it used to really, it was just a house in this town called Kirkwood that they turned into just a children's museum, just like with science exhibits and so forth. But the thing when I was a kid that you went for, there were two things in this place. One was that it had an electrostatic ball where you would touch this big silver ball and it would make your hand or your hair stand straight up. And I had when I was a kid, believe it or not, I had blonde white hair. Now it wasn't white hair because I'm old. Now that's how it is now. I color my hair, little Patreon secret, because I don't want to look totally gray yet. But back in the day when I was a kid, I'll have to try to find a picture, but I had like blonde white hair and it was very fine. And so when you went and put your hand on this electrostatic ball thing, they would take your picture and your hair would stand straight up. And they would take your picture and then they would make it into a button, right? Because it was like the early 80s, late 70s, and everybody had to have a button. And so you'd have this button that says, I went to the Magic House, and it had your picture holding onto the ball with your hair sticking straight up. Every kid in St. Louis had one of these buttons. I wish I knew where mine was. I have no idea. But every kid had one of those. If you grew up in St. Louis in the 80s, you had one of those. So that was the probably the coolest thing at the Magic House. The other cool two other things at the Magic House that were really cool. They had a 3-story slide, so you go to the very top of this old house that they'd renovated, and you went down this slide all the way to the basement. It was just a big like twisty slide like you would find at like Burger King or McDonald's playground, but it was a lot taller. It was probably 3 or 4 stories. The final thing, which is not there, those two things are still there. The thing that is not there anymore that freaked me out as a kid, they had there, it was called the touch tunnel. And it was a sensory deprivation thing to kind of show you if you were blind. So it was basically you went into this tunnel and it was totally pitch black. And it was again, this was like the late 70s, early 80s. It was to simulate if you were blind how you would have to use this only the sense of touch to make your way through this tunnel. And it was like really long. And kids always, I got stuck in there. Like you would get lost in there and you'd freak out. And what they did was they had microphones in there. So if you got lost, they would come in and get you and they could turn on the lights and come after you. And apparently they had to do this all the time because this tunnel was like long and like really complex and like kids would freak out in there all the time and they took it out. So it was called the touch tunnel. Oh, finally, one other thing that was in there. I don't even know what this thing was. There's this wall that has it's really hard to describe, but it's a room where the walls like you can like there's a flash that goes off in these walls and you jump up along the sides of the walls and it makes like a silhouette of where you were in like a green color. It almost looks like those old iPod commercials. The Magic House is really cool. If you ever come to St. Louis, that's a cool thing to take your kids to, the Magic House. So I'm glad Carrie brought that up. That's a great memory. And we've gone there many times with Mallory and Paige. Oh yeah, the Magic House. All right, Jennifer Perry, some feedback here. She says, first, yes, we definitely enjoyed being at Disney in 70 degrees and sunshine more while there was a blizzard at home. Yeah, we talked about that last week. Isn't it better to be in Florida when everybody back home is freezing? Totally. I definitely remember the Riverboat McDonald's from when I was a kid. It was so cool. Also, you described a trip to St. Louis that we took with our kids when they were young. Grant's Farm, the Arch, the Riverboat Tour, and the awesome St. Louis Zoo. Grant's Farm is the best, especially to get to meet the real Clydesdales and get the free beer. Yep. The Arch was the worst for me. I learned to relax and wait in the museum since I'm terrified of heights, and the Arch sways at the top. Yes, it does. Not as exciting as the Riverboat McDonald's, but as a kid growing up in central Illinois, we took an annual field trip to New Salem where Abraham Lincoln lived as a young man. Well, thanks, Jennifer. That's a great feedback. Yeah. If you're scared of heights, you don't want to go up in the Arch. It's skinny, it's tall, it does sway on a windy day. And I'm telling you, if you're claustrophobic, you do not want to have anything to do with the Arch. You're like in an Apollo pod going up in this like crickety elevator. It is kind of crazy. So, but the Arch is unique. I mean, everybody should do it once, but it's not for the faint of heart. It's not just like it's not going up in a regular building. Let's see. Jennifer also said, as always, thanks for the great memories your podcast brings back. Don't ever worry about the show running too long. I just don't want to make this show too long because here's how I look at it. And I'm going to talk about this in just a second about other podcasts because I'm always a podcast fan. I'm not just a mic fan. I'm not a mic fan at all. I'm a podcast fan. I love the medium. But if you think about it this week, we've put out a Monday show, a Wednesday show, a Friday show. We did a live show on Sunday night, which is now in your feed on Thursday. And here's an additional show on Thursday. That's a lot to listen to. And I hope that you listen to many, many other people that create podcasts. That's what this is all about. It's about the community. And so I don't want to hog too much of your time. So I try to keep this one a little bit shorter, but I do love making podcasts. So it's kind of hard for me sometimes to stop because this is always my fun. This is my fun time of the week. Okay, we have some more feedback real quick. Let me hit this. Trisha says, every time we went to the Milwaukee Zoo, the only thing I remember about zoos was lunchtime when they would wheel out a cart with the teacher's name on it. And it was basically a free-for-all trying to find your own paper bag. Always felt bad for the kid who forgot to put their name on the outside of the bag. Yes. I remember that. You had to pack your paper bag lunch when you went on a field trip as a kid. Very good point, Trisha. She continues. One of my biggest childhood regrets was the year we went to the public museum. We went to a constellation show in the adjoining IMAX. Sounds great, right? No. It was the day after I'd gotten my first pair of glasses, and having never worn them before, I forgot them. I couldn't see a single thing through the entire 30-minute show. No, that's so. I would think in IMAX, though, you'd be able to see everything because it's so big. I mean, if there's one day to miss your glasses, I would think watching an IMAX show, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's just how I think. She says, best trip behind the scenes at Miller Park, now called America Family Field. I idolized the Brewers when I was little. Okay, maybe not just when I was little. And it was awesome to feel like I was on a VIP tour. Yeah, Trisha, thanks for the feedback. I always want to get up to Miller. I still call it Miller Park. I call baseball fields by their old names, by the way. I still call it Comiskey up in the Sox, by the way. So I really want to get to Miller Park. I've never been there, and it's not that bad of a drive. I need to get there for a Brewers Cardinals series. My dad has gone up, my sister's gone up, and they always rave about what a great park it is, and it just looks awesome. And the Cardinals always hit well there anyway. We play well up in Miller Park, and it just looks like a great place to watch a ball game. So I do got to get up there. I love folks in Milwaukee and in Wisconsin in general. Everybody seems so kind up there. It's like not a mean. Chicago's not even a mean rivalry. I've been to Wrigley many times, but I got to get up there and watch a game up at Miller Park. I'm not going to call it America Family Field. I can't do that. I can't change the names of places. I'm terrible. I'm terrible. Thanks for the feedback, Trisha. Len, my good buddy in Maryland now, but he always has a Sparty on his little icon there. He says, I grew up just west of Flint, Michigan. Probably the most normal field trip for us was to the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan, outside of Detroit. Back in the late 70s, Michigan was pretty much known for one thing, and that was cars. I was also in the marching band at my high school. Two of the most memorable trips for the band was experiencing exact opposite conditions wearing the same uniform, which was not up to the task in either situation. One weekend a year in the middle of winter, we would travel 3 hours north to Houghton Lake, Michigan. I hope I said that right. To march in their Tip Top Town Parade. It was so cold, our horns would freeze up, and all you could do is play the notes that went by in the music that could be played in the position your horn froze. That sounds like no fun. The second place we played was in the exact opposite conditions, was someplace called Walt Disney World. We got to march in one of the daily parades that used to include high school marching bands. That was more heat than most of us from Michigan have ever felt. Being in a wool marching band uniform did not help, but that trip to Walt Disney World is what sent me on my journey that brought me here to being a patron of your podcast. Well, God bless the Heat and band in Michigan, Len. I'm glad to have you here as a friend. Thank you for the support. And I'm glad you survived the cold conditions. Because here's the thing. when I was never in band, I always played sports, but when I see these bands playing in these super, super cold conditions, I don't think it's terrible for the percussionists, like for the drummers and the people playing the cymbals and the bells, but like people that are playing, especially brass instruments. I don't even know if it's so bad for like woodwinds, but brass instruments just has to be horrible because it's like, who wants to put something that's metallic right up against your lips when it's like 20 degrees? I feel for those folks. And I didn't even know that your instruments could freeze up like that. So shout out to the trumpeters. They're playing in northern Michigan in the wintertime. You guys rock. All right, Michelle Camber, my good friend down in South Florida. Glad to have she's been here since the very beginning of our podcast. Always glad to have her. She says, we had some great field trips from South Florida. Oh my gosh, I can only imagine. Fourth grade was always St. Augustine for our Florida history unit. Fifth grade year, the year end trip was Kennedy Space Center, and eighth grade was Epcot. Oh my, we got to go to Riverboat McDonald's. You guys got to go to Kennedy Space Center and Epcot. You're killing me. This was 1985, 86, so Epcot was in its prime. Oh my gosh. I think I still have my ticket somewhere. I also remember a lot of canoe trips in middle and high school and some Busch Gardens trips too. Never had any beach trips that I could remember, but we did do a swamp buggy tour of the Everglades once. Fun topic. Oh man. Oh, I should have grown up in South Florida. All of a sudden, Grant's Farm and the Magic House that I thought were so cool, not so cool. All right, the last piece of feedback here is from Dennis, my good buddy. He's down in Texas, but he grew up in St. Louis. So let's see if he can bring it back home here. Dennis says, I grew up in St. Louis too. My favorite field trip was always the zoo. Getting to spend a full day wandering around with classmates and a few chaperones was always a good time. And I had completely forgotten about the McDonald's riverboat. On the one hand, it was a McDonald's, but somehow the riverboat experience made it so cool. I remember that they sometimes had special riverboat Happy Meals. Yes, I totally forgot about that until just now. Yeah, they had like they had the Happy Meals came in like paddle wheelers, like steamers, like packaging. Yes, I gotta. So you know what I'm doing after this show? I'm googling. Actually, I should be working, but I will Google over lunch. Finally, Dennis says, also the first time I went up in the arch, it was a windy day and the arch was swaying a little at the top. I was already nervous to go up there, but when I got to the top and I could feel it moving, I got a little green. Fortunately, I was able to endure it and make it back down to the bottom without incident. Great show, Mike. Thank you, Dennis. Yeah, that's one of the things. Everybody's got a story in St. Louis, and there it is. I forgot about those Happy Meals. I'm totally Googling that. So thank you so much for your feedback. If you have feedback about this show or any other show, just go to patreon.com/BRGuest podcast. Thank you guys for the memories. I love this stuff. That's so much fun. All right. So today, speaking of memories, those were kind of ancient memories from my childhood. Today, more recent memories from these memories are going to be from the probably late 2000s, where I first got into podcasting and not even podcasting, but when I first got into listening to podcasts, and I've told this story many, many times. My wife, Pam, this one Christmas decided, this little thing came out, this MP3 player called an iPod, and she decided to get me one for it's either my birthday or Christmas. They're both around the same time of the year. And I got it. And I'm not a big music person. I used to work as a DJ. So I had to listen to music constantly for years and years and years. I had to play music. And so, I have music that I like, but I typically listen to like on the radio, I listen to talk radio almost exclusively. And so I didn't know what to do with this thing. But I did go onto iTunes at the time and found these podcasts, and I was a Disney fan and I read Disney guidebooks and so forth. And I came across, Disney podcasts. The greatest thing about these, if you guys know me, is that they were free. Like, holy cow. Like, I can listen to a Disney podcast and subscribe actually and kind of get like a subscription, like a magazine subscription or something that comes weekly or monthly or whatever, whatever the publisher does. And I don't have to pay a dime. Like it comes right to my computer. And back in the day, if you remember that, and this is kind of why our podcasts come out when they do, because I have never changed ours because I'm a nostalgic person. I kind of like it. A few people know why our podcasts come out the night before, because if back when we started our podcast in 2008, the way most people got our show is that you would download it to your computer And then what you would have to do is take your device, like your iPod or your Zune or whatever, and you would have to plug it into your computer itself via some kind of a USB cord or something like that, like a 30 pin or something that they don't even make anymore. And then you would have to sync it to your iTunes account, and it would sync over your newer podcasts, put them on your iPod, and then you could take it with you to work or wherever to your commute the next day. And so that's what I would do. So every morning I would get up in the morning and I would take my iPod, I would charge it overnight, and then I would take it downstairs where I took my shower, and my computer was down there. And before I got in the shower, I'd plug my iPod into my computer, and I would have my computer running all night. So I'd download my podcasts. And then when I got out of the shower, it would be synced up, and then I would grab it and I would listen to it. I had a little converter in my Jeep, and I would listen to them on the way to school. And then I would listen to them on my break at school and so forth. And that's what I did every morning. So it was nice if they came out the night before, because that way they were sitting on my computer in the morning so that I could have them for the next day's commute. So that's why our podcasts come out at approximately 9 o'clock Eastern time the night before. So that if you are still stuck in 2008, you can download our show, sync it, and have it in time for the next day's commute. I know we don't even need that in today's instant world, because you can just go to beourguestpodcast.com and you can literally, our website is on mobile. It is optimized to where that when you go to beourguestpodcast.com on a mobile device, if you hit play, the show will start playing within 4 seconds. That's how quick it is. We've optimized it. It is a very nice site. We've done some work with that. To give you a good experience. I doubt many people even use it, but you know, you don't have to do any of that right now. You can just stream it, you can play it. It's super easy, but back in the day, that's where it is. And I just don't like to change it because I just like that bit of nostalgia. Very few people probably wonder why our Wednesday show comes out on Tuesday, our Monday show comes out on Sunday night, our Friday show comes out on Thursday night. But that's why. Andrew knows, Dr. Kai knows. Okay, so here's what I want to talk about real quick today. I was thinking about this the other day. My top 5 Disney podcasts that I wish were still around as a Disney fan. Because I listen to other podcasts. I listen to tech podcasts. I listen to podcasts about retro things, about like retro. Uh, I listened to a show that it was a limited time run. It was about people that worked in old video stores like Blockbusters and Hollywood Videos and stuff like that. It was kind of fun listening to employees that used to, you know, rent out the movie tapes in the 90s and 80s and stuff. I listen to shows, like I said, like technology shows on the Twit network. I listen to some running podcasts. I just whatever I have I want to listen to. It's kind of interesting. I listen to some just random shows. So here's the top 5 that I've listened to that I've invested tons of time into over the years that have gone away over the years, and I wish would come back in the Disney hemisphere. Maybe you listen to these shows. Maybe you never heard about these shows, but I really did enjoy them over the time. I just want to give them a shout out here in 2022. First show is Inside the Magic. This was the very, very first Disney podcast that I ever found when I got my first iPod. It was put out by Ricky Briganti, who is still around, but he's not doing podcasts. And I think he sold off the Inside the Magic brand, because if you probably see Inside the Magic on social media, and they're kind of sensational and everything they post. I'm not a big fan of that. But back in the day, his show was he was living in Florida, and he was reporting, basically he did like an hour to an hour and a half every week of Disney parks news. And there wasn't a lot of that. So he would give us the updates of what was happening in the theme parks. And it was very well produced. It had lots of background music. It had high quality news. It was just it sounded nice. Like it didn't sound like some guy, you know, talking into a tin can. It was a really well produced thing. And I couldn't believe it that it was just a guy in Florida that put this out for free. But that show was really well done, you know, and it had feature stories. He would interview sometimes cast members. And it was a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed Inside the Magic back in the day of the podcast. Again, that was probably around 2005, 2006. And I can't remember when it ended, but that's when I listened to that. The second podcast that I wanted to send a shout out to was Netcod. Now, some of you might have caught this show, and this was put out by a guy named Van. Now, I don't know Van very well. I'd never really interacted with Van, but I was a fan of Van. Look at that. Poet and didn't know it. Now, if you know Van, or if you have seen Van on social, Van has been down at Walt Disney World this past week, because I do follow him on social media. And I believe he is bringing back Netcot, which kind of got me thinking about this. So that's kind of exciting. But back in the day, Netcot was kind of a cutting edge type Disney podcast that had a little bit of a edge to it. He was kind of famous for doing top 7 lists of obscure things. And he was definitely a Disney fan, but he did not mind calling Disney out on things, which I thought was kind of fun. And he would do just weird topics, but it was always from a fan's point of view. He did it because he liked the product. He did it because he liked visiting Walt Disney World. If he didn't like something, he wouldn't hesitate to say that, but he said it because he wanted it to be better. And again, very high quality produced show. And it was always fun. I believe he was based out of Minnesota. I just really, really enjoyed his shows. They were shorter. They were, not super. This was a panel show that was put out by Nate Parrish, Henry Work, Katie Silowak Latkowski at the time, and Scott Barrett. And it was a group of 4 and Jeff Cheney. It was basically 4 or 5 people that were all Disney fans and also technology enthusiasts. And, they had some expertise in those fields. And they would just kind of sit around and talk about, this is kind of the thesis of the show, was the intersection of Disney and technology. And this show was kind of hot in the like 2012, 13, 14. And it was really the right show for the right time, because this was when magic bands were still being rumored. And my Disney experience was just coming online, and you had apps like Gowalla and Foursquare coming into fruition. Twitter was very much in its infancy. Social media was not being used to the extent that it is now. So, every week these guys and gals would come on and talk about how technology was going to influence our Disney vacations. The only thing is, this only became more and more prevalent in our Disney vacations. I mean, think about it. I wish this show could have continued because, Genie Plus. I mean, that is you want to talk about an intersection of Disney and technology. That's what Genie Plus is. Yeah. So this show, it hit at the right time, but I think it could have continued, because this is a show that definitely has um they were right on with their topic and their intersection of these 2 topics. And if anything, it's just going to continue. Disney and technology are going to they're going to be a marriage that continues and continues. So I wish Beta Mouse would come back. I know it probably won't, but I've always wanted to continue talking about some of those topics on our show because it's fun. The 4th show I'd love to see come back, and we still have it in a way, is Wedway Radio. Again, Matt Parrish, Nate Parrish, the 2 brothers. I love this show because it was a very, very deep dive into a lot of Disney history that I did not know. Very well produced, very well produced, very well researched. In Nate and Matt, when they talked together, it was just like you were kind of sitting at a table with them, or you were sitting at the bar with them. You could tell that they, obviously they're brothers, but they were, good friends, and they really enjoyed spending this time together, being able to research a topic together and share it. And you could tell that they were passionate about that topic. But here's the thing, you could also tell that both of them worked in education and still do. Nate is a high school instructor. Matt works in media production, and he's also a college instructor. And so the way they produce their show, and they did produce their show, and the way that they presented the information was just so easy to digest, and it sounded great. But you came out of the show, it was educational, but it was also just fun to listen to. It was entertaining. It was entertaining more than anything, but it was also educational. It was very Disney, right? It was edutainment, the whole show. So I learned a ton from every episode of What Way Radio that I listened to, and I wish it was still around. And I hope it could come back. I mean, I know times change and people get busy, but I would love to see What Way Radio come back onto my feed. That'd be awesome. Finally, the last show that I wish was still around is the original WDW Today with Matt, Mike, and Len. This show was just, if you listen to it back in the day, it was just fun. It was just fun. It was a cast of characters. Basically, it was kind of the morning zoo radio show that you might listen to on your FM station, but it was all about Disney. It's quick hits, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Sound familiar? And it was just 4 people on a panel, sometimes 3. Sound familiar? Just talking about Disney topics. On Wednesdays, they would just kind of take your listener questions. Sound familiar? And just talk about things that were going on. And it basically, what it became was it was about the content, right? The content was always important, but it was also about hearing about what was going on with Matt and his interaction with Len and what Newell was doing and Scopa, what was happening in his life, and they bring on extra guests and stuff. But it was getting everybody's take on what's happening in the Disney news or what was happening with the trends with Disney or what they think is going to happen. They're what was going on with everything they thought was going to happen. So WDW today, it was fun to listen to because you just wanted to hang out with them for 20, 25, 30 minutes on a Tuesday, or sorry, if you're listening to it on Tuesday from the Monday show, you just want to 30 minutes with them, hang out, see what they were talking about. It was always going to be about Disney in some sort. I hope that's kind of how you feel with our shows. Like just hang out with Pam, Mike, and Ricky or Scott and see what's going on. Let's talk Disney for a few minutes and just have some good times. So those are the shows I wish were still around. There's some others too, but those kind of hit right off the top. Inside the Magic, Netcot, Beta Mouse, Wedway Radio, and WDW today. So as we wrap this up, and as I went really long again today, what are the Disney podcasts you wish were still around? Let's hear it in the feedback because I want to share your thoughts. What did I miss? What do you agree with? Let's talk about it on next week's show. So leave your feedback over at patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast. And until we talk again next week, this is Mike saying stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon.